Alright, it looks like we are live. Welcome everyone, and right now I'm just here with Nicholas. This is going to be just an informal chat, just a nice little hangout on air. If you want to join the discussion, please, by all means, come on in. The water is fine. I just put a link in the chat, and there's also a link in the description below. So this is kind of a review / open discussion on Dr. Dan's challenge and Smokey and the discussion he had with Smokey. I would really love for Dr. Dan and Smokey to join, but I don't see them here just yet.
Yeah, now that the reminder went out that you started, they might be alerted and show up. So
Yeah,
that would be good.
I did send them all an email about 45 minutes to an hour ago, so maybe they just haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, and I've been watching the emails that we're doing, and Dan and Smokey were talking to each other a lot, and I had a lot to say on it, and I was like, I'm not even gonna open that one up, so I stopped reading them.
Yeah.
But I still want to. If Dan's going to refute the Genesis story as being a creation myth, as the name of his channel is, then I would require abiogenesis. I mean, the way Genesis is worded, all the animals except for humans, all the animals, it says, let the earth bring them forth after their kind. And so even if evolution were true, that would just, if it without abiogenesis, it would just be proving what the interpretation of Genesis is. It doesn't refute Genesis at all.
Yeah,
And
so
then, of course, man is the exception, so we could sort of get into that, I guess. But my point is that, Dan's saying that he doesn't claim to be an expert on abiogenesis, and that's fine, but I don't know what he's doing by refuting Genesis if abiogenesis is impossible.
of course, I think that'll be a fun debate to have with Dr. Dan. But I guess the first question that I have for you is, what exactly is a kind, and where do we draw the line between kinds?
Okay, for me, the word kind is used in the Bible. So I would define a kind that in a way that would make it consistent with where the word is used in the Bible. So that
Yeah.
would mean anything with a common ancestor is the same kind in context that everything comes forth after its own kind.
Right. So, of course, we share a common ancestor with the other great apes, so are we all part of the same kind? Again, how do we...
Well, I don't agree that we share that ancestor, but if we did, then by that definition, we would be the same kind. But
Yeah.
in context of the scripture, we wouldn't be, because I'm not entertaining this, even though I did say that with the animals coming forth from the earth, that could, in theory, be talking about evolution. But man was made by God's own hand from the earth.
So, according to Genesis, it looks like there's living creatures, there's cattle, creeping things, and wild animals of every kind, whatever that is. So it looks like there's a cattle kind, there's a creeping kind, a wild kind. Again, that's just
Well,
really...
no, those aren't kinds. It's not a science book. That's just giving like the land animals and making a generalization so we know it's being talked about. But when it talks about all being brought forth after their kind, that would mean whatever it does mean. It's not actually giving us those details. But all I'm getting at with humans is that even if humans did come forth as being quote unquote biologically the same kind, which I'm not entertaining, but if that were the case, then we would still be our own kind because there was some special declaration from God there in Genesis.
Right.
And the word kind is based on scripture. So it's not fair to we just go to scripture to find out what kind means, which is why I would say anything that has a common ancestor, I'd call the same kind. So in common ancestry theory, there would be one kind or else very, very few kinds, like
Yeah.
2 or 3 at the very most in common ancestry theory.
Yeah. Ian actually posts a really good comment here. There's more genetic differences between cats and the quote unquote cat kind than in the chimpanzee and human. So again, I think that's a
Well,
point.
there's also more difference between chimpanzees and each other than there is between humans and Neanderthals.
Right.
And I don't really want to address the comparisons between humans and chimps because I'm not yet clear on what is only talking about protein coding and what's talking about the entire genome and stuff. And I am pretty confused on what those stats are, or at least I have to do some more double checking before I can really take Ian at his word, because that might just be protein coding. And of course, we have very similar proteins to chimpanzees. That's obvious. That doesn't prove anything about common ancestry.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good question for Dr. Dan. If he does decide to come in, that's a question that we should ask him. So I think he would be a better person to ask.
Well, yeah. And
So yeah, I think what Dr. Dan is really doing, I think, is showing why the creationist arguments are simply wrong, and that's kind of like he's debunking creation arguments against evolution. That is basically what he's doing.
yeah, and it's a little bit of a difficult thing because academia they haven't been testing any sort of creation hypothesis at all, and they haven't been focusing on it and modeling on it or anything. So then they really aren't in a position to talk about it very easily and quickly.
And
And they haven't refuted it because they haven't tested it to test it as false.
okay, well, how would they even test the creationist hypotheses?
Well, I mean, just talking about doing our best to provide ourselves with the best conjecture on that hypothesis, the same thing that they do with the common ancestry hypothesis. They just take the data and conjecture to their best hypothesis. Um, so, I mean, I would consider evolutionary theory to be a philosophy of science because for me, science is the direct tests and data. And you can start to call things direct science when you get like a super clean result, like what they get in physics, for instance.
Yeah, you want to. Most of these videos are kind of short. Would you be interested in maybe watching one of his videos together on Neanderthals? It's like about 8.5 minutes.
Yeah, and you're not coming through quite clear, David. I heard something about Neanderthals.
Okay, is this any better?
Hey, yeah, that's totally better.
Okay, good. Yeah. If you are interested, maybe we could watch a couple of Dr. Gan's videos and kind of comment on them together. Dr. Gan actually did do a whole debate with Standing on Neanderthals, and he has about an 8.5 minute video on them as well. So if you want to watch the 8.5 minute video and you can give your thoughts, that'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'll wingman you on that. Um, the thing is my opinion of when I've dug into some of Dr. Dan's arguments so far is that they're kind of like cup and ball tricks, and so I'm not sure if I'll have the kind of constructive opinion here that you're looking for. But
Yeah. Um, let's see here.
which is what's pretty interesting about all this. I mean, from my perspective, it seems like our side is standing on the right side, and then that's making it difficult for Dr. Dan and a lot of semantics and stuff, but it's not really coming to any results that evidence anything.
Yeah. All right.
So,
So do you want to just watch this together real quick?
yeah.
All right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Creation Myths. Today, we're going to examine the creationist claim that Neanderthals descended from Homo sapiens. Did Neanderthals descend from Homo sapiens? No, not even close. The creationist argument here is that Neanderthals must be descended from Homo sapiens, the same Homo sapiens that all existing humans are descended from. This is due in part to the fact that you can't deny that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals overlapped historically. We have way too much archaeological evidence to deny the fact that these two groups of organisms overlapped. This causes a problem for young Earth creationists because having another group of hominins present and overlapping with Homo sapiens is incompatible with young Earth accounts, unless Neanderthals were themselves Homo sapiens. So the solution that many creationist organizations have arrived at is to claim that Neanderthals were descended from Homo sapiens. In other words, Neanderthals are just degenerate humans. Here we have in the Answers Research Journal, that's the peer-reviewed journal from Answers in Genesis, saying young Earth creationists rightly consider that Neanderthals were human. And the Institute for Creation Research is a little more straightforward, and they just say Neanderthals are still human. I really appreciate creationist organizations being so direct about this because it leads to directly testable predictions. The young Earth model makes a prediction, and the evolution model makes a prediction, and we can test those predictions and see which ones are right. So here is the young Earth prediction. If you take the genomes of Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, and we have robust genetic data for Neanderthals, we have Neanderthal genomes, so we can do this. You take those genomes, because the young Earth creationists are claiming that Neanderthals share common ancestry with Homo sapiens. So right here at the root of this tree, that's the common ancestor between extant Homo sapiens and, in red, the Neanderthal lineages. Now, according to the biblical model, that root is going to be Adam and Eve. Now, since that's what we're establishing as the history, we can then make a prediction about the genetics. If you compare the genomes, the sequences for Neanderthals, the red branch, must be nested within the larger Homo sapiens clade because they share common ancestry with that clade. In effect, Neanderthals are Homo sapiens. That's the creationist prediction. The evolution model looks at things differently. We can look at, for instance, geological evidence, paleontological evidence, and archaeological evidence, and say Neanderthals are the sister group to Homo sapiens. We don't share a common Homo sapien ancestor. Instead, you have a common ancestor right here that was neither Neanderthal nor Homo sapien. But that lineage diverged. One lineage generated Neanderthals, among other things, and the other lineage led to Homo sapiens.
Okay, wait,
We
I'm
can then
already
compare the
seeing
genomes of
something I want to
Neanderthals
comment real
and
quick.
Homo sapiens.
Because I'm not seeing like the difference between these two graphs at all, really. Like this bottom graph, you just put Adam and Eve as being on this black part of the graph, and you have no problem. So I mean, I'm definitely, I think I'm calling it a graph, but I think it's technically a chart. I could be wrong. I guess it is a graph. Anyway, my point is that I'll keep listening, but yeah, I would just put Adam and Eve on the black part of the graph, and that seems to sound good to me. Well, not up there, but down lower on the black one in the same spot on the evolution one. Like that's what I mean by I don't see a difference between the two graphs. They both adjoin to a common ancestry that would be Adam and Eve.
And see, how do they compare? Do the Neanderthals fall within the Homo sapien clade, or are they the sister group? When you do this work, you run into a bunch of problems for creationists. First is that the data are very clear and unambiguous. Neanderthals are sister to, not part of, Homo sapiens. And we know this, again, because we have their genomes. So here on this map, we have 4 sites where we have collected Neanderthal DNA. In part B right here, we have this larger figure that shows the relationships between Neanderthals, humans, chimps, and bonobos. You can see that Neanderthals and humans fall out together. And then if you zoom in on this tree, you can see that we have a clade for Homo sapiens, and we have a clade for Neanderthals. And you can see the Neanderthal clade is not nested within Homo sapiens. It is what's called the sister group to Homo sapiens. This is in line with the predictions that flow from evolutionary theory, but it violates the creationist predictions. The creationist prediction is incorrect. And
All right. So, Nicholas, I hope that kind of answers your question about the difference between the two graphs. Is that the evolutionary graph is showing them as sister clades and not the same. But yeah, they are definitely different phylogenies. Hey, creation myths. Yeah, they are different phylogenies.
Oh, cool. He's here. Yeah, I mean they both go to common human ancestors here. I don't see what the issue is at all. I don't see any issue brought up. It's just fine.
Well, the issue is that they are completely different predictions from.
Well, no, I mean both graphs fit in Adam and Eve, right? On there's a common ancestor, and you put Adam and Eve as the common ancestor on both graphs. This
Well, well,
I mean, Dan's here, so he can explain it if he wants. But I at this point, I have to be very adamant that I don't see what this is even about at all. To be honest.
the point of it is that Dana claims is that at the base of at the very top of the evolutionary tree, um, the common ancestor to both Neanderthals and humans was neither human nor Neanderthal, so it wasn't Adam and Eve, because the common ancestor was not Homo sapien and they were not Neanderthals as well.
Well, yeah, but we can just relabel some things and say that all three are humans and the problem's solved. These are just human labels. They don't change anything about the facts. This is what I mean by semantics games.
Yeah, he says he's busy, can't jump in now. That is fine. I really hope you can jump in just to kind of clarify for Nicholas. But again, these aren't just lines on paper or just conjectures. These are well supported. This is a very well supported.
Well, I understand that there's some bones that I know that we disagree about well supported and stuff doing generalizations on this. But regardless of that, I understand the concept of the clades having them be classified this way. But both trees have a spot for Adam and Eve to sit on the tree. So that's all. That's what I'm saying is that as my understanding of creation model in general is that it has to match what's written in the Bible, and that's why we have prediction that was done in advance. So when they say that we don't have like predictive power, we do. And I think we really found that when we found Noah and Eve in the genetics,
Yeah, well, those are definitely, as Dr. Daniel explains elsewhere, that they're two different people, and that the mitochondrial Eve actually moves forward in time, as mitochondrial Eve and all is the most recent common ancestor. So according to the biblical model, Noah would be the most recent common ancestor. Let's continue.
Oh, I see. So Noah's wife would be mitochondrial. Oh, well, no, because his sons married 3 other women.
Yeah,
so
but
there would not be a mitochondrial Eve at that moment because it would only go down to 4 branches, which is actually what's been found in the genetic data.
I'll let, hold on here. Dr. Dan, no, it's 2 different hypotheses. Look how monophyly works. One has the Neanderthals as Homo sapiens, and the other doesn't. But let's continue watching the video, because I think later on Dr. Dan actually does clarify what you are asking.
I know creationists like to point out that, hey, we make testable predictions too. Well, sure, that's fine, but in order to be right, your predictions have to be accurate. And here it's not. The second problem for creationists with regard to Neanderthals is that Neanderthals break creationist most recent common ancestor dates. Basically, if you're going to look at the genetic diversity in existing Homo sapiens, creationists need to be able to trace that diversity back to a common ancestor within the last 6,000 years. So, for example, Jensen 2015 in his research paper on AIG. Now, this is already wrong before considering Neanderthals. For example, the Homo sapiens mitochondrial most recent common ancestor dates back to between 60 and 200,000 years ago. And I have some videos on this. I will link them in the description. But let's assume for the sake of argument that creationists are right, that you can take the Homo sapiens genetic diversity and do coalescence analysis, and you get a most recent common ancestor at just 6,000 years ago. So in this figure right here, we have all of extant humans right in here, and we could trace that common ancestor to this node, and that was only 6,000 years ago. Well, do you see the problem? Neanderthal genetic diversity is over here. It's in addition to Homo sapiens genetic diversity. So if you add the Neanderthals to the mix, now you've pushed that most recent common ancestor too far back into the past to be compatible with creationist timeframes. In effect, you have 2 creationist claims here that are in direct conflict with each other: a most recent common ancestor, and Neanderthals as part of the Homo sapiens clade. Those 2 things are completely incompatible with each other, but both are required for young Earth creationism to work. The creationist response to these problems is that, well, Neanderthals were hypermutating. They had faster mutation rates, and that explains why they're so different from the rest of Homo sapiens. Even though they share a common ancestor, we can explain those differences based on the fact that they just experienced more mutations. Now, That's not the case. This claim is just a post hoc addition to the creationist model to solve the unsolvable problems that we just identified. In fact, if you claim Neanderthals were hypermutating, you actually create more problems. For example, based on the available genomes, Neanderthals had less genetic diversity than extant humans. So here's a paper talking about how Neanderthals were highly inbred. And if you look at that and you see how they're lacking in genetic diversity, well, lacking in genetic diversity is incompatible with being hypermutating. Because if you experience a lot of mutations, what are you generating? More
Wait,
genetic diversity.
I have a big problem with
the
this one.
hypermutating hypothesis.
Yeah, I mean, inbreeding causes both a smaller gene pool with less diversity and hypermutation.
Yeah,
So, since there's one explanation that is the explanation that explains both, this
never what it calls hypermutation.
that is a little muffled.
Yeah, but
Right?
yeah,
I mean,
those are two completely different things. He's going to kind of clarify, but yeah, if they're inbred, that's kind Neanderthals have less genetic diversity, thus they were not hypermutating. Those are two completely incompatible claims. And
well, except that inbreeding causes hypermutation.
no, it
Or,
doesn't.
well,
No.
I guess it doesn't. It causes well, it would. I mean, once you have the phenotypic redundancies not functioning, then the genetics is not being withheld as well. So if what is compromised by inbreeding is the system of genetic stability, keeping it all stable, then it could really collapse into sudden mass mutation. That
No.
wouldn't be difficult at all.
No, it
Especially
doesn't.
because genetics require so much specified complexity, it's very easy for it to go wrong.
Yeah, and yeah, hypermutation is faster mutation rates, and inbreeding doesn't cause that. And in fact, it can't cause that. If I'm wrong, correct me.
Right, but the only thing, well, we would have extremely fast mutation rates all the time, except that the DNA and the cellular biology has mechanisms to constantly fix almost every single problem that arises. So if those mechanisms were what was deformed from inbreeding causes deformities because you don't have the redundancies. So as soon as those mechanisms that protect the genetics become a bit deformed, you suddenly get skyrocketing mutation rates. So
Yeah.
there's an easy hypothesis for it. That's the only thing. It's just
Yeah,
and it fits the data too. The hypothesis that's easy fits the data. So we're really in the gold on this one too.
no, you're definitely not. And yes, yeah, causes homogeneity to increase and thus less diversity, and it does not increase mutation rates, period. But let's continue.
Well, I just said how it can increase mutation rates, and I was correct. So I don't see where you guys go off saying that, but okay.
Is just contradicted by the data. The second problem here is that this doesn't solve the first problem, because even if you claim that Neanderthals were hypermutating, we say, okay, fine, Neanderthals were hypermutating, they still need to fall within the Homo sapiens clade if they share a common ancestor. What you would see is this tree represents the adjusted creationist prediction based on hypermutating Neanderthals, which again, something we don't have any evidence for. But if you take that at face value, you don't get the tree that actually exists with Neanderthals as the sister group to Homo sapiens. Instead, you would predict this tree, where you have a Homo sapiens common ancestor, which again, in the biblical model, is going to be Adam and Eve. You have all extant Homo sapiens descended from those common ancestors, and you have Neanderthals nested within there. The difference is that Neanderthals have longer branches, indicating more mutations in those lineages. This is not what we see. So the problem is that the creation model is still wrong, even after you adjust it with hypermutability. So you put all of these problems on top of each other, and creationists have no answer for the requirement that in their model, Neanderthals have to be human, but also all available genetic evidence contradicts that claim. So to summarize, Some young Earth creationists claim that Neanderthals are descended from Homo sapiens, which is to say they are members of the Homo sapien clade. This is perfectly rational for young Earth creationists to say. It's required for the young Earth creation model to work. But it's contradicted by all available genetic data. Neanderthals are the sister group to Homo sapiens, not nested within the Homo sapien clade. They have less diversity, not more. And if you include Neanderthals in your most recent common ancestor calculations, they violate the young Earth creation timeline that requires coalescence within 6,000 years. So, are Neanderthals descended from Homo sapiens? No, that is a creation myth. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
A creation myth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to.
Okay, yeah. And as Dr. Dan says, Jason agrees with me. He says faster mutation rates mean more heterozygosity, not less. See chapter 8 of Replacing Darwin. And
yeah, and I understand how if you don't bring in a specific cause into the model, it's not that I'm not following. It's just that we know that inbreeding causes deformities. And we know that if you were to have dysfunction in genetic repair, then mutation rates would suddenly skyrocket. And so considering that I believe the scriptures are true based on very heavy reason and that there's no scientific data against, it would be different if someone's disagreeing about the inbreeding,
Yeah.
But with the inbreeding, you have this high potential that, not high potential necessarily, I'm not trying to say things I don't know, but you have, inbreeding does cause deformities. So someone would have to provide me with some kind of solid argument that those deformities could not be the genetic repair system. And with I know a lot about the microbiology and stuff because we're very interested in that over on our side because that specified complexity is a big part of our argument.
Yeah,
and with what I know about that, it would be very easy for that to come to a point of dysfunction.
Yeah, I'm actually going to share a paper real quick from Answers Genesis. Can you see this? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So this is not going to propose my hypothesis, right?
Yeah, well, here's the thing about James's paper is that they're criticized by creationists themselves, and this is a paper in a number of papers Dr. Jameson and co-workers claim to have documented a recent origin of humans. However, Jameson failed to include both Neanderthals and Denisovans in such analysis. And of course, that is highly problematic because that would completely change the results from his work. So,
yeah, what's going on here? I have no qualification to provide any defense against anything that's said against him, and so yeah, you can look at the paper and say the criticisms about it, but I've looked into criticisms against Jensen before and found that they were based on assumptions and conjecture instead of science. Specific set of mutations.
Yeah,
assumptions.
Here's the
A very specific set of mutations. Well, that might be true. It just seems like the genetic functions could be affected in some potential by any mutation because they interact with everything. So it's like if a pandemic's going around, the people who have to be the doctors have that risk because they're next to the people who are sick, It's like whatever problems there might be, the repair mechanisms are the ones who are the front lines facing it all. So they are facing the very most potential of somehow going awry.
I actually think there's an even bigger problem with the creationist argument here and trying to fit Homo erectus, Neanderthalensis, Floresiensis, and other hominids within the human clade, within the human Homo vermin, is that I just don't see how they could evolve so quickly and go extinct so quickly, and how exactly are humans not affected by that? So how is it that modern humans, that they become so interbreeding and have all those deleterious mutations that they claim would cause Neanderthals and other hominids as well.
Yeah, we are getting pretty deep into this, considering that, I'm able to watch that video and see that I didn't see any refutations in it, but that's not the same thing as me knowing enough about this to say that I support this model. So as we get deeper into it, I can explain as a layman who understands what we're saying that it's only a selective population, and that's where we get the inbreeding from, and that's sort of the center of this whole discussion, and that answers your question. But I also want to say that I'm not, I know abiogenesis is impossible, for instance. I have enough education on that. But as far as this whole what the Neanderthals are thing, I'm not pretending that I know that for sure.
By the way, I do want to welcome Dr. Dan to the stream. Dr. Dan, I really love for being here.
Good evening. I can stay for anywhere from 30 seconds to like 10 minutes, basically.
Dr. Dan,
if you would like, I can clarify a couple things if you would want me to.
Yeah, please go. By all means, go ahead and comment on what you feel.
So, yeah, while you're here, say what you'd like.
Yeah, would you like to go back to the slide with the two trees? Where it was like the you know what I mean? Actually, I might be able to pull that up. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, you can see if you can pull that up.
I can show you what I mean here.
So, Dr. Dean, thank you so much for taking your time to come on my channel and talk with Smokey and all that.
Yeah, thank you for letting me pop in. I appreciate it. I'm just pulling up. Here we go. Pulling up. Here we go. Let me see if I can just share this window real fast. Here we go. This one. Okay. Sorry, I've got several things going on here. Let's see. All right. Let's see here. Boom. I want to share PowerPoint. If I can do this right. This one. All right. All right. Here we go. Can you see the PowerPoint slide there? Is that visible? There we go. All right. So what we're looking at here is in this top one. All right. Up here, these are different. And the reason they're different is what this part is. This is the root at the top of the tree where everything is descended from. So up here, if it's blue, that means it's Homo sapiens. Down here, where it's black, that's not Homo sapiens. That's something different. Now, because of monophyly, if you have Homo sapiens at the root, then everything descended from it is also Homo sapiens. Down here, if you have something different, whatever that is, then these two groups, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, they form a clade together. But the Neanderthals are separate from the Homo sapiens. They're not the same thing. So in this bottom tree, Adam and Eve would be over here, right? At the common ancestor of all Homo sapiens.
My question is, why can't we just put Adam and Eve at the little peak
up here
of the black thing? Yes,
because then this becomes blue, and then the Neanderthals become nested within the Homo sapiens clade, and it becomes the same as this.
Well, except that if Neanderthals are more similar to us than chimps are to other chimps, then it doesn't seem to me like this black section is something that's not human. So it doesn't seem to me like there's any problem with putting Adam and Eve there. I mean, if
Adam and Eve are at the root here that I've selected, if that is Adam and Eve right there, then I think we agree that Adam and Eve were Homo sapiens, which means everything descended from that has to be Homo sapiens.
Well, from how you're defining Homo sapiens, you're showing me it's possible that they're not Homo sapiens by that definition.
I am not aware of any interpretation of the Bible where Adam and Eve are not Homo sapiens, but
the Bible has nothing to do with our modern taxonomy, so there is no interpretation where they are Homo sapiens. They're humans. But to me, I don't see why that black section would not be human, especially because all the descendants are human. The red and blue section are both humans.
Well, how are we defining human? Genus Homo?
I mean, since Neanderthals are part of our ancestry, we would consider them human.
They're not. They are not part of our ancestry. They are a side group.
A lot of people have some Neanderthal DNA today because they have Neanderthals in their ancestry.
It's from interbreed.
They interbred into our
cross
ancestry.
Like this, though. It's not vertical.
Yeah, I understand, but because they interbred, I would say that they're all human. I'm not concerned about these other classifications in terms of scripture, because scripture is not a modern science book.
Okay, so let's go to the actual data then. So we can look at like actual genetic data, and what we see is the kind of evolutionary prediction up here, where we have a common ancestor. We've got your Neanderthals in orange, and then separate from them in gray, you've got your Homo sapiens right here. And you can do that for mitochondria. You can do that for the nuclear genome. And you can do any part of the genome, you get the same pattern. There's another phylogeny from this paper. That's the Y chromosome. It looks the same. I just didn't show it, but it's the same basic thing. And what this shows is that if you're going to consider the Neanderthals human, right, then the human most recent common ancestor has to be back here, meaning that has to be, because again, I was trying to refute the creation model here, then that would have to be Adam and Eve. Is that a proper interpretation?
Yes, and this part I found agreeable, except that I think we would disagree about the timeline and the evidence of the timeline. I'm not trying to open up a can of worms.
Yeah, I mean, that's a separate question just from interpreting the
Yeah,
phylogeny, though. The thing that I want to highlight is that these two phylogenies show different relationships. Whereas, here, this would be like Homo, I think it would be like Homo heidelbergensis would be like the common ancestor up here, where drawing it this way, this is very much Homo sapiens right there.
Yeah,
So it's two different trajectories, right? Where you've got Neanderthals
I
descended
that,
from
I'm
anatomically modern humans versus not.
Yeah, and I can just
Sorry, I'm still here. Sorry.
Yeah, heidelbergensis, of course, had a common ancestor from what we know so far, and I think from the last time I checked, modern humans only have like 4% maximum of Neanderthal genomes, but
it's a little bit. It's just from interbreeding though, so I mean it varies 1 to 2%, I think.
But last time I also checked, Neanderthals have 0% human DNA, which is quite fascinating.
Right. So there was introgression from Neanderthals into the human lineage, but there was none in the other direction.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much by itself.
Except we have to pause for a second and remember that we're looking at this stuff from the future, because if Neanderthals and Homo sapiens are so similar, we're defining what's what based on them not sharing it. And so then once we say they're not sharing it, it becomes a circular argument.
No, because we have a group of humans that never interbred with Neanderthals, and we can look at them to identify the things that are specifically from Homo sapiens.
Oh, I see. So then, oh, okay, I get what you're starting to say.
Right. So so only human populations in Asia and Europe interbred with Neanderthals, but humans in Africa did not. So you have Homo sapiens genomes from African populations that don't have any Neanderthal genetic markers. And that's how we can tell that there are no Homo sapiens markers in the Neanderthal DNA we've recovered, because we have the Homo sapiens genomes with no Neanderthal markers. So we know what that looks like. So we could kind of cross-reference.
So but there's still the entirety of what Neanderthals and Homo sapiens have in common that we're disregarding because they have it in common. They have it in common. So I guess we're talking about the difference between the same genome and the difference between tracing ancestry.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just I've got a baby on a baby monitor here. Sorry, so that's what I'm just sorry.
And Dr. Dean, if I could share my screen real quick, I think I have
go for it.
A graph here that would hopefully clear everything up for him. Okay, go ahead. So here's what it kind of shows. So heidelbergensis is here, and then we have Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, and right here would be where we interbred and hybridized.
But then there's also the point of common ancestry, because I mean, no matter what, we do agree that at some point there was common ancestry, and then there was some limited interbreeding. So in general, it's still looking kind of the same either way.
I do want to point out that phylogenetics and interpreting these kinds of figures is not super intuitive. But these two trees right here do show different relationships. If you wanted to make the bottom tree match the top tree, what you would do is make these branches in here red. And that would show the Neanderthals nested within the Homo sapiens.
Yeah, well, I do understand the difference between the trees, but it sort of goes back to what I was saying about how Adam and Eve wouldn't have to be Homo sapien, they could be human. It's like we're saying that they didn't interbreed, but the whole black part is interbreeding, right?
No. So, okay, so I should be clear about what this shows. So these lines indicate vertical ancestry, meaning parent to offspring. And
the part that's interbreeding is the part that's not shown on the graph.
Right. So interbreeding. Let me just real quick. The way you would show interbreeding would be like this.
Right?
Let me show you. So I'm just going to do this on the fly. The way you would show interbreeding would be like this, and then you'd make that an arrow.
But I'm referring to because you're saying that they have no Homo sapien DNA. But if we go back to this pre-Homo sapien species, that's the black thing, that's sort of where...
What I mean, right, so we share a bunch, but what I mean is they have no genetic markers that are otherwise unique to Homo sapiens. Whereas some Homo sapiens, some modern living humans, have genetic markers that are otherwise unique to Neanderthals.
Yeah, because, I mean, the way that animals speciate and the way we classify species, there's a broad spectrum of ways that can happen. Like if two populations stop breeding and don't breed together anymore in nature, that's like the softest definition of a species, maybe. And then we get harder and harder definitions. So even if we have all this, the different species stuff, it just means that the black section is essentially like pre-flood humanity kind of a thing.
But then that would have to be, so that would still have to be anatomically modern humans though, right?
No, not if humans changed a lot, but I know that that's just kind of being thrown out there. Yeah, not if humans changed a lot, huh? Anatomically modern humans, well...
by the way, there is one thing that I do want to point out, is that we do have the Y DNA, the Y chromosome for the Neanderthals, and that Y DNA that is just so completely different from anything from modern humans.
Yeah, it's also an outgroup. Yeah, it's and actually in that same paper.
Well, I want to focus on this point you were just on because it really had my gears going. I think it was a really good point for me to address. So we were just, what was the point again? Dan?
That these two trees are different, and then if this tree, the bottom tree, if we're going to say that this is going to be compatible with a biblical model,
the anatomical differences between the blue section and the black section.
Well, what would have to happen is there would have to be no, like, I mean, I'm not. This is a new idea to me that Adam and Eve would be something other than like Homo sapiens, like anatomically modern humans. And if we're positing that like Adam and Eve could have been like Homo heidelbergensis or something, then whatever. Then it doesn't matter.
I'm not necessarily positing any side. It was like David was like, let's watch Dan's video. And this is what I thought about your video, because I am not so expert to say that like I know which of these graphs makes more sense. I don't know the data to even say my opinion on which graph makes more sense. But I can review generally, and then, you know, if you keep specifying your position, then that helps the whole discussion, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm happy to do it.
In that black section, I mean, I would just put where they do have common ancestry in the black section, and then there's a little bit of interbreeding, and that still makes sense to me. And then unless we're going to have a reason that black section can't be like, in general, pre-flood humanity.
Well, the problem there, there's two issues there. The first problem is that if you're going to have the black section represent pre-flood humanity, then that means that Neanderthals, the genetic diversity that we see within Neanderthals, is necessarily going to be a subset of those ancestral Homo sapiens.
And I may say a little bit because I just thought of what the answer to your question is. Because if I understand Standing's idea, the Neanderthals are after Babel dispersed, which would be post-flood. So what I'm talking about seems to fit Standing's model. But my answer about the genetic difference is that we have the bottleneck of Noah and his 3 sons and the 4 women who were all from different families.
That still wouldn't change the tree, though, because you're still going to have.
Well,
So you've
you
got
have a
original created.
moment, just
I'm
a
sorry?
speciating. The bottleneck could be a speciating moment.
But here, let me finish though, because what you have
section.
is you have an original kind of created set of biodiversity, and then anything subsequent to that is going to be a subset of it. In other words, it's going to be nested within the ancestor rather than a separate group.
Wait, but we do agree that the red and blue are nested within the black.
Yes,
Okay, so I don't see how.
because the
That-
black in the bottom tree is not
Yeah,
Homo sapiens. It's not modern humans. It's not.
Yeah, so that would be pre-flood humanity, and then the bottleneck would have created the speciation of Neanderthal and sapien.
So the only difference then is just that then this would have to be blue instead of black, and then those trees are the same. They're just drawing the branches differently. I do need to run,
Because the Homo
but I could
sapiens
possibly
wouldn't
come
have
back.
existed until the bottleneck.
Okay.
That is a new theory for me. I do need to run,
Okay.
but
It was a
potentially
nice
I'll be
talk.
back later.
Dr. Dan, before you run, quick question for you. If you see, I don't know if you saw when I was talking about, when we were talking about Planet Squares yesterday. Was I correct on that? From what I was
I did not. I don't recall. I can look into it later, possibly. Very sorry to have to run though, but
I really appreciate everyone and joining our live stream.
Well, that was a lot of fun, and I mean, I was just doing my best to respond as the layman in my position to what was offered, you know. So
Yeah, definitely a lot of fun. I really appreciate Dr. Dan coming on. I kind of wish Smokey Saint and Standing Up for Truth were here because I'm sure they would have had a lot of stuff to say about it.
yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, I've taken up sort of the role of like we laymen's are allowed to have our voice in it so long as we're actually like looking into it the best we can and we know why we're on certain sides on certain positions and we know why we're not sure about certain things and stuff, you know. So I'm wanting to represent and empower like lay people in a lot of ways, you know, because I never went to seminary or anything, but I plan to go in that direction of being a ministerial person, you know.
Nice. All right. Hold on. Speed of Sound of Gravity. Speed of Sound of Gravity. It is in the link. It is in the description to the live stream if you want to jump in. It's in the description. Also, here is the link if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Speed's gonna want to like challenge me on more of this stuff, but if I'm just being honest, like it's not what I felt like doing today or what I feel like doing more of, you know. I just wanted to like
You can definitely have like a friendly discussion, and yeah, Speed, if you want to come in, you're more than welcome.
because Speed and I do like to challenge each other a lot.
Yeah,
And you know, what fun it becomes, that's what I'll do, but a coffee break. I mean, I'm down to head out. I really enjoyed that, but I also like I'm down to just relax. I don't know. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I'm definitely down. I'm just gonna wait for Speed for a couple minutes to see if he comes in to the live stream. But yeah, this was definitely a fun stream.
Okay. Well,
Maybe a coffee break minute. So
yeah, I don't want to leave you hanging. Are you prepared to fill the airtime, or do you want to have another discussion or something?
well, we can have another discussion where
Well, I mean, what do you think of me just kind of making the black section pre-flood and saying that.
It's interesting. Here he is now. Hey, Speed.
I'm shutting that off.
He didn't make us wait. That was good. It wasn't the best.
Hello.
Hey, Speed.
Yep. I thought it was at 7.
Yeah, it is at 7. And it's almost 8 o'clock now.
Oh, shit. Your time. Your time.
Sorry for the confusion. Next time I'm going to be more specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're all used
I'm
to being
sorry.
specific, but when David wasn't specific, none of us noticed. I thought it was going to be at 7 o'clock my time.
Yeah.
Because everyone was always specific. So when David wasn't, like, we're not even on alert. We fell for it.
Okay. Got some headphones on. Everything's cool. Have a cup of coffee.
A standing's available later to discuss Neanderthals.
Yes, and I would like to do that. So, Standing, if you want to come in, I don't know if you want to do it on my channel or yours, but I think that should be a separate stream. And again, I'll ask Dr. Dan if he wants to join, because I know he might come back a little bit later.
Oh, and Standing, yeah, they put me on like the Neanderthal fire. And I don't know if you know Dr. Dan's graphs, but I just said that the black part was generally pre-flood. So I think I did pretty good.
Yeah.
So you might want to rewatch that and see how your layperson brother did, your opinion. I'd like your feedback on that someday.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, Standing says we're going to be doing a separate stream at 10 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know if it's going to be on my channel or his channel. Yet I'm kind of hashing out details in the comment section. But yeah, our discussion on Neanderthals is going to be quite fascinating, and I hope you guys stick around for that. It's 10 p.m. Which means I got to get some work in.
So, what did Dan have to say about his hangout with Smokey today?
He really didn't discuss that. He was more or less discussing his video on Neanderthals because Nicholas and I was talking about it.
Okay.
But yeah.
He was busy with family, and I think as we were talking about his video and I kept not being compelled by his arguments, he was eventually tempted to come in.
Yeah. What argument aren't you compelled by?
Oh, I mean, we just went over it in some detail, but first, it's basically, well, if David would put the graph up real quick, because then I can explain it easily. There's a black section of the graph that I say would be generally before the flood, and then the bottleneck of the flood would have speciated the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens from the humanity of before the flood.
Yeah.
Now, this is all just a response. I just want to say this to Speed real quick. It's just a response to the video and to what I saw. Like, I don't know the topic of Neanderthals well enough to be speaking like authoritatively on this, but that's my response to the video. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I think Smokey did a really good job. I think Smokey handled himself quite well. I love Smokey. He's a great guy. He's great to discuss with. So yeah, I'm really glad that he was able to do this.
Yeah, and I was able to understand what you said, but it was coming across pretty muffled.
Okay.
Yeah, you're muffled.
Is this any better?
Yeah,
Yep.
that's better.
Okay, yeah, I was just saying that. Yeah, I love Smokey. Saying he's a good guy, and I really enjoyed his stream. I think he handled himself quite well.
You mean Dr. Dan? Or
Sorry about Smokey, but yeah, I think he did quite well.
oh, Dr. Dan did quite well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. He usually does.
Yeah, I think Dr. Dan is definitely going to be one of the best YouTubers on evolution. He's definitely blowing Aaron Ra out of the water so far. I love Aaron Ra, but so far, I'm really enjoying Dr. Dan's channel.
Yeah, Dr. Dan does. He does it so concisely and to the point that it's just really smooth. He's really good. The other one that does really well is Erica, and she does. She has the same talent.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, and for me, Dr. Dan is definitely very fun to engage.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, a lot of people, they don't really get, a lot of people keep it very, like, vague or just kind of appealing to consensus or things like that. And so they don't really get into the fun parts. But Dr. Dan does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I tried to, but you guys cut me off after the first sentence. So, so it's a little difficult.
Well, he has the advantage that he doesn't try to address abiogenesis or, because there's things that life does but there's things that chemicals don't do.
Right. So Standing is going to be on our channel, I'm hoping, Sunday night, I think, Standing. Or Stanley, as I love to call him, because he is my son. I don't know if you knew that. I'm his father.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's supposed to be on our channel talking about, with Walker, talking about Neanderthals.
Yep. Ian, thank you so much. You're too kind. Trace Dollar says, "Hey, speed of pudding sideshow."
Yep. Yeah, I'm changing my name to Speed of Pudding. But I don't know. It doesn't have the same ring, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I like Speed of Sounded Crappy. I like that name.
I don't know. We're thinking about calling ourselves the Trash Clowns because that's what Smokey likes to call us, except for Walker.
That thumbnail is priceless. I was thinking I might like show up and all that, because if you're gonna do that thumbnail and be like a sport, then I can like check it out.
Yeah. Actually, Erica drew that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's where it came from.
Yeah.
I thought she not she, but I thought it was like edited from the pictures you guys already have, kind of a thing.
You mean the Trash Clown thumbnail?
Yeah.
No, Walker drew that.
Yeah, that's a priceless thumbnail. And I was just like, okay, well, if they're gonna be like sports about what Smokey's saying, and I'm like dating Smokey so hard.
Yeah. Well, they're if we can't throw a little bit of humor into some of these insults that we throw at each other, if you don't, you're just gonna damage yourself. I mean, if you can't take it,
Yeah, exactly.
So
this is like, people say this is the difference between men and women, that like men will have like these fights and then be friends afterwards, and women have trouble making that happen. Like they'll hold grudges and stuff.
yeah, well, we hold grudges against men, but they should.
I'm just saying how like we come at each other pretty hard at times, and like in a lot of different ways, not only in simply like arguing the facts,
Yep.
Yet we're thick-skinned about it anyway. We're men about it, that's for sure. And I think of you all as my frenemies,
Yeah.
Not like the kind of frenemies that are friends first, but then like they're kind of backhanded friends, so they're also enemies. But more like the kind of enemies that are also like, we're straight up face to face with each other, and like we're kind of friends. So like the other type of frenemy.
Yeah, there are some people, though, that I am considering myself not friends with. And I would put Smokey in that class, and I would put John Maddox in that class. But not you, Nicholas. Even though you came at me kind of hot and heavy when we talked, I still kind of understand where you were coming from. And I think we ended up, talking like humans. So.
Yeah, and I'm glad we can all have our disagreements and yet still have a friendly, open discussion. I think that's one of the things that's missing in culture today. And people not being willing to admit that they don't know something and just not make up bullshit to cover their ass.
Yeah. There is a point, though, where I draw the line. There are certain things that I do not like seeing in the dialogue. Like if somebody engages somebody else and they are unfair to them and they are abusive, or if they are sexist or if racist or whatever, then I'm done with those people, and we are no longer going to have a conversation. I'm going to talk about them. I am not going to talk to them. And there is a cutoff point. I mean, you can only get away with so much crap on these channels, and then you've crossed the line where you need to be. I need to come at them with derision rather than conversation. The conversation is over.
Yeah, I cannot agree more with you. Anyway, it's 8 o'clock now, a little bit past 8 o'clock Eastern time.
Yep.
10 p.m. Eastern time, I will be discussing Neanderthals with Standing. I don't know if it's my channel or his channel yet, but we're still hashing out the details in email. I did invite Smoke and Dr. Dan to join the chat. I'm going to sign off right now. That way I can have some time to put together a PowerPoint real quickly and kind of discuss it over and just prepare for the discussion.
Okay, we'll see you, Nicholas. But David, before you leave, you should email me at speedofsoundofgravity@gmail.com so that next time we can work out the time right, because I wanted to show up for this. So
yeah, and again, I do apologize for not being clear about it. But yeah, next time I do something like this, you're more than welcome to come on to my channel.
Okay, I do this all the time. I always get, especially with Ian Chen. He's on the wrong side of the world, and there are some real funny. I have made some funny mistakes with time zones, but anyway, good talking to you. We'll see you guys.
All right, and I am signing off. Thank you for watching.